The blade sang through the air with lethal precision, finding its mark across the human's face. Commander Vela of the Korthax Empire watched crimson blood spray from the wound, speckling her ceremonial sword with droplets that seemed to glow under the harsh light of the arena. The human soldier stumbled backward, one hand clutching his torn cheek, but he did not fall. His eyes, fierce and unyielding, locked onto hers, even as blood ran between his fingers. The roar of the crowd faded to confused silence. Vela stood frozen, her violet skin suddenly cold despite the heat of battle. The human's blood on her blade began to shimmer, each droplet igniting with an impossible light that grew brighter with each passing second. She tried to release her grip on the weapon, but her fingers would not obey. The light climbed from the blade to her hand, wrapping around her wrist like living chains. The ancient law, the forbidden covenant her people had abandoned millennia ago, believing it lost to time and myth. Blood bond. When a warrior of Korthax drew the blood of a worthy opponent in formal combat, and that blood touched their blade with the opponent still standing, the bond would form, unbreakable, eternal. No, Vela whispered, but the light only burned brighter. Across the arena floor, the human soldier lowered his hand from his wounded face. His expression shifted from pain to recognition, then to something that might have been grim satisfaction. He knew. Somehow, this primitive species from a backwater world knew what was happening. The human ambassadors had proposed this duel as a means of settling the Borer dispute. One champion from each side, formal combat in the old ways, witnessed by both governments. The Korthax High Command had laughed at the suggestion. These upstart humans, barely a century into space travel, challenging the empire that had dominated this sector for 10,000 years. They would learn their place. Vela had been chosen to teach them that lesson. She was the finest blade master in 3 systems, undefeated in 47 duels. The human they sent was a simple infantry officer named Cole, scarred from a dozen conflicts, carrying a weapon that looked ancient even by their standards. The match was supposed to be a formality. Now the light from the blood bond wrapped around them both, visible to everyone in the grand arena. The Korthax diplomats erupted in outrage and denial. The human delegation remained eerily quiet, watching with expressions that suggested they had anticipated this exact outcome. The light faded, leaving behind a sensation that Vela felt in her bones. A connection, gossamer thin but utterly unbreakable, stretching between her and the bleeding human. The law was absolute. She had drawn worthy blood in formal combat, and the bond had formed. Until death, she would serve him. Her life, her skills, her very soul now belonged to Cole of Earth. I challenge the validity of this bond, High Chancellor Terran declared, rising from his seat in the observation deck. The blood bond is a relic, a superstition from our barbaric past. It holds no legal authority. The human ambassador, an older woman with steel-gray hair and knowing eyes, stood as well. Your own archives contain the Covenant's exact wording. We studied them quite thoroughly. The bond is recognized under the Treaty of Ancient Rights, which your empire signed 400 years ago and has never revoked. Commander Vela drew blood from a standing opponent and witnessed formal combat. The law is clear. They had planned this. Vela realized it with growing horror. The humans had researched Korthax history, found the forgotten law, and engineered this entire situation. They had sent someone they knew could withstand her initial strikes, someone whose blood would trigger the bond. This was not a border negotiation. This was a trap, and she had walked into it with her blade drawn and her pride blinding her. Cole approached, moving with the careful steps of someone accustomed to pain. Up close, Vela could see that the wound she had given him was severe, cutting from his left temple across his cheek to his jaw. It would scar badly, a permanent mark of this moment. He met her eyes without flinching, and she saw intelligence there, and calculation, but also something that surprised her, respect. "I did not want it to be this way," Cole said, his voice rougher than she expected. "But my people needed an advantage, and you gave us one. The bond will hold?" "Until death," Vila said, the words tasting like ash. "I am yours to command, human. My blade, my life, my honor, all bound to your service." "Good," Cole said, "because we are going to need you." The days that followed were a chaos of legal arguments and diplomatic maneuvering. The Korthax Empire demanded the bond be dissolved, citing a dozen technicalities and precedents. The human delegation calmly refuted each argument with references to the Empire's own laws and historical records. They had done their homework with terrifying thoroughness. In the end, the High Council had no choice but to acknowledge the bond's legitimacy. To deny it would be to admit that their own ancient laws held no meaning, which would undermine the very foundations of their legal system. Commander Vela, one of their finest warriors, now belonged to Earth. The border dispute was settled within hours. The Korthax Empire, unwilling to risk further embarrassment, conceded to every major point the humans had demanded. The price of pride, Vela thought bitterly as she watched her people retreat from their negotiating position. Cole kept her close during the negotiations, though he made few demands of her. He asked her opinion on military matters, listened when she spoke about Korthax tactics and technology, treated her with a courtesy that somehow made the servitude worse. If he had been cruel, she could have hated him cleanly. Instead, she found herself grudgingly admiring his strategic mind. On the third night, as the diplomatic vessels prepared to depart, Cole found her on the observation deck of the human ship. The stars beyond the viewport looked the same as they always had, indifferent to the small dramas of mortal beings. "You are wondering why we chose this path," Cole said, standing beside her. The wound on his face was healing, but it would indeed leave a terrible scar. "There were other options. You wanted to humiliate us," Vela said, "to prove that humans could outthink the mighty Korthax Empire." "No," Cole said quietly. "We wanted to survive. Your empire was preparing for war. We found evidence of fleet movements, resource allocation, propaganda campaigns. You were going to invade human space within the year. We are not warriors like you, Commander. We are farmers and engineers, scientists and teachers. We have known war, yes, but we do not seek it. We needed something that would make your empire think twice about attacking us." Vela turned to look at him. "And now you have me. One warrior. How does that prevent a war? One warrior, bound by unbreakable law to serve humanity," Cole corrected. "You know our strategies now, our strengths and weaknesses. You know your own people even better. The bond means you cannot betray us, cannot harm us, must in fact protect us as you would protect me. Your empire understands this. They know that attacking us now means fighting against their own knowledge, their own tactics as wielded by one of their finest minds. It introduces uncertainty where before there was only confidence. You have made me a traitor to my people," Vela said, but the anger she tried to summon would not come. Only weariness. "I have made you a bridge between our peoples," Cole said. "If you choose to be. The bond compels service, but it does not dictate how that service is rendered. You could sulk and resist, offering only the bare minimum the law requires. Or you could help us understand each other, prevent the war that would have killed millions on both sides. The choice is yours." Vela was silent for a long time, watching the stars wheel past. She thought of her people, proud and ancient, so certain of their superiority that they had not noticed a younger race studying their weaknesses. She thought of the war that had been coming, the battles she would have fought, the humans she would have killed without ever knowing them. "Tell me about Earth," she said finally. If I am to serve your people, I should understand them. Cole smiled, a careful expression that pulled at his wounded face. It is a world of water and green growing things, he began. We have 7 continents and more languages than stars in some clusters. We fight among ourselves more than we should, but when threatened from outside, we tend to unite. We are stubborn, curious, and we have a saying, humanity. Fuck yeah. It means we refuse to accept that we cannot overcome our challenges, no matter how impossible they seem. Your people planned this from the beginning, Vela said. The duel, the blood bond, all of it. You knew I would strike your face. You stood in the exact position to ensure the blood would hit my blade properly. You are more devious than I gave you credit for. We are survivors, Commander, Cole said. And now so are you. Bound to us, yes, but also protected by us. No Korthax assassin will dare touch you, knowing it would mean war with Earth. Your empire cast you aside the moment the bond formed, but we will not. You are one of us now. Vela looked at the human, at his scarred face and steady eyes, and felt the bond humming between them like a plucked string. She had entered the arena as a conqueror and emerged as a servant. But perhaps, in time, she might become something else entirely. Something neither Korthax nor human had words for yet. Tell me more about your Earth, she said. And as Cole spoke of blue skies and endless oceans, of mountains that touched clouds and cities that never slept,